and I teach over at another college in Shibo College, another college.
Fantastic. Good evening. We are going to call the March 19th, 2026 Public Art Commission meeting to order. Okay, we're going to start with roll call. Commissioner Mullery. Here. Commissioner Stern.
Here.
Commissioner Tran.
Here.
Commissioner Smith. Present. And then Commissioner Yoshi.
Yeah.
Okay. And Commissioner De La Garza.
Present.
Oh my God. So sorry about that. Okay. And then do we have any agenda changes, additions, and or deletions?
There are none.
Okay. Well, let's start with, do we have any public comments?
No raised hands.
Okay. Well, then we are in for a treat with our special item. Take it away.
Hey, well, this microphone, I almost forgot to do that, which is it'd be second nature at this point. Good evening, all. Let's see, do we have our slides? Were you able to get those? Okay, let's just go ahead and we can jump to the second slide. And my topic this evening is partnering norms between staff and commissioners for maximum effectiveness. And again, just really want to appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation. This is a bit of an experiment for us. And first off, I should dispel any concern that I'm here because someone did something wrong. Having now visited a couple of other commissions, that's the first question. Who did something wrong? And I can say that actually we're really working to implement a best practice and to avoid issues before they become issues. And as a result of really some of the staff discussion that we've had, as well as conversations with commissioners over the course of time, we thought it would be good to periodically talk about how best for staff to support the commission and to really also provide an opportunity for staff to be trained and to gain their own clarity on their role. I will tell you, as I mentioned, it's a bit of an experiment, and you're now the third commission that I've come to visit with on this topic. And if nothing else, it has reinforced for me the range of circumstances that the commissions address, and also to a certain extent the dynamics. I took the opportunity to watch your last commission meeting, and I got a sense of some of the just kind of the vibe of the group, and I will say it's a really a wonderful environment that you have here. And I think it's certainly a result of the individuals as well as the topic area and the support that you get from your staff. And so with that, as a launch, let me just provide a little bit of context for a discussion this evening. First off, as you know, the city's board, commission, and committees handbook, what we affectionately call the BCC handbook, really does provide the basic blueprint that guides our work and our how we do our work as a city and as a commission and staff in supporting you. That said, the BCC handbook is focused with the commissioners. And so it really doesn't focus on the staff role. It does touch on it a bit, but we felt that it was important to provide a little more clarity for our staff and do so in a way that engages the commissions in the conversation, in the interactions and the way that we do our work together. And so that led to our suggestion that we start with some norms. And also, sorry, a little bit of more context, just acknowledging that the commissions provide a developmental role for staff, as well as potentially for council, future council members, who knows, or other roles that you may want to take on with the city. And as such, again, focusing on roles and how we work together is an important part of that support. And also acknowledging for our staff in our discussions, just recognizing that, life and work in the public public realm, in the public eye, does come with expectations and, quite frankly, today, uh, polarization, and there's a level of stress that can be involved in doing our work in public as we do every day. And as such, again, providing some support and some structure for that is in everyone's interest. So we did generate some staff proposals for norms, and recognizing they are simply a conversation starter. And again, as I pointed out earlier, the commissions really do have a variety of environments that you're working within, and topics that you take on. So I'd like to just use it as a conversation starter. We can talk about the norms that we've drafted and any reaction that you have or suggestions. And if the conversation is useful, this is the type of thing that we might want to do periodically, perhaps as part of your annual retreat, or in any other forum that makes sense from your perspective. So let's go to the next slide. I'll just, in general terms, note the topic areas that we addressed or wanted to provide some perspective on. And so they include the commission scope. Again, each commission is different. Public Art Commission has your mission, your role is defined both in the municipal code as well as through the handbook. Clarity on that mission, in particular, how your scope is implemented. And in your case, it may be advisory to the city council, advisory to staff in the implementation of your work plans, as well as the multi-year master plans and specific plans in different venues. How we support professional and respectful conduct, that's certainly an expectation and an assumption, but again, one that we provide some opportunity for discussion, respect for time, how we do our presentations, how we staff provide our presentations, how we structure our staff reports, and your reactions to that. The engagement through the presentations themselves, transparency and legal compliance. It's, again, somewhat assumed, but always helpful to reflect on that and answer any questions that can come up on the Brown Act, how that applies, and any other rules that we have. Number 7, this feedback on staff work. This is a point of discussion at one of the other commissions. What we would hope is that where we maybe, if and we ever fall short in terms of the quality of our staff work, that we have an opportunity for that discussion to happen privately first. And, if they're concerned that perhaps the staff work is just not up to expectations, that we do have the opportunity to talk about that privately. Ultimately, if that doesn't work, then we respect and understand that there may need to be some public discussion of it. But again, it's to set some expectation in terms of how things are escalated. And then finally, we just close with this upholding the city's values and public trust, where we recognize that the commissions really do serve as a bridge between the community and the work of the city. And so how we do that, and again, in the public view in particular, we always want to reinforce the values and the manners in which we are doing that. So those are, again, basically our starting point, and happy to receive any feedback or any discussion that you'd like to give us as we are doing this roadshow. That completes my presentation. Chair, back to you.
Well, thank you. I know we have a number of new commissioners, and so actually we're relatively, aside from myself, a relatively young commission. And so we, really have been looking forward to your guidance in terms of so the guardrails and around our authority and also our responsibility, more importantly. And so I wanted to, hopefully, we've asked our commissioners to do a little homework and come with questions.
Okay. All right.
So
Great.
gonna open the floor for them. Well, if not, maybe if I may start.
Sure.
So one of the common questions we get is, obviously people are very passionate about art, and they're very passionate about public art opportunities here in Palo Alto. And question is, and that's the reason why we're on the commission, right? You know, both topics are close to our hearts. And question is, when and if ever appropriate for us to bring public art opportunity topics to the staff?
Ah, that's a great question. And, actually, I think I'll open it up for our staff to respond to that. As I made a reference to the work plans, which, again, across the commissions is the way that commissions as a body would communicate to the city council what you believe your priorities should be for a year and how your work would be communicated to the council. And that could include new priorities, as the case may be, or how we're implementing the existing priorities. So that's sort of the overarching approach. And Elise, perhaps you want to elaborate.
Of course, I'd be happy to jump in. So, of course, we are guided by our public art plan, our citywide plan, our Cal Ave plan. We have one out for the Baylands as well. And also looking at the integration of public art in capital improvement projects. So that also drives a lot of our timeline, our forecasting 2, 3, 4 years out as we see construction projects coming online, right? Everything we do is multi-year in nature. And we also take the feedback from the community. So for instance, everything we've learned for each code art, we've been able to build and make it more successful. So these are the types of things we integrate into our recommendations for the timeline. It's also wonderful to hear from you all as the conduit from the community, what you're hearing at these events. How can we make them better? We like to integrate that feedback in there. So we're always thinking about that, always taking those notes and how we might integrate some of those elements into future projects.
So just as a follow-up, and I'm a new commissioner, in conveying information that we do here, if it's not specific to an event like Code Art, where obviously we're standing around gathering information, hearing what people are saying, when is it that we bring that? Like if we say, oh, I've heard a rumbling from a couple of people now and, over a different time about XYZ.
I'm always here for that. So you should just reach out to me. We can have a conversation and figure out what's the best path to address that. Mm-hmm.
If I could add, from what Elise pointed out, also when those plans are developed is a really critical time, because that establishes basically the program that we're then moving into implementation mode. So I don't know if we've got any plans that are currently in the works that might provide an example of the next opportunity to do that, along with, I know the commission use subcommittees for selection of artists and the works. So that process is also a really important function for the commission in ensuring that how we'll call it the vision of the plans are actually implemented to ensure that there's alignment there.
And thinking about the artist selection, the panels, the outreach, the artist listening sessions as they're developing projects, it's also an opportunity to invite those people who have other opinions and want to get involved to attend those and share their opinions too. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Invite them like to the public comment part of our meetings. Is that what you mean?
That, and or if an artist has been selected for a project, often part of the requirement is that they hold a listening session. So for instance, for the new temporary artwork on California Avenue, the selected artist, once approved, will need to have a listening session. So that's an opportunity to invite all of those people to come and share what's special about that district. What does the artist need to know before they begin their design development?
I would like to ask a couple of questions. So we all come to the commission, and I hope I can speak for most of us, really bright-eyed and expecting we could influence, change, et cetera, do things here. But given that the timeline is long, and I don't know, I've felt kind of impotent to figure out what I can actually do here, influence here, come up with ideas that staff is fantastic. I think you can agree that our staff is, exceptional.
I'd agree.
But commissioners, we are 7, and I feel like a lot of times we are just rubber stamping opportunities as opposed to being able to bring new opportunities to the commission, to the public art forum. But I don't know if that's not our role as a commission. Maybe that isn't what we are here for. So I would love if you could clarify that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, again, I'm looking at the section in our board BCC handbook that refers to the Public Art Commission, and it outlines the elements in terms of the duties. And so many of them do refer to how art is implemented. And I would say that that's a primary role for the commission. That said, the annual work plan that I refer to really is an opportunity for the commission as a body to work with staff to, let me also recognize there's always a bit of a tension between the desire to do more and the resources available, right? And so the work plan is our primary mechanism for striking that balance, to have a conversation between commissioners and staff as to what's on our plate for the upcoming year and how best to implement that, and whether some of it may be entirely new ideas. I think that's an opportunity to flesh out what can be accomplished in the upcoming year. Now, that said, I may actually ask Councilmember Liu to weigh in because he's on the receiving end of those work plans, also with the vantage point across commissions.
One thing I will say to the more general point about influencing what happens in the city is that it is hard, even for council, it is hard. And that is by design, because there are many commissions with many people who have different opinions, who all know staff and can call staff and lobby and insist that things be done a certain way. And that is, for council, often counterproductive because there's 7 highly opinionated people. And so for council, we have some leeway. We can work with city manager's office. We can work with some senior staff directly, and we can pitch them things and we can ask a lot of questions. But when it comes to real action, the staff know that they are not to act on what a council member or even a few council members want. It has to go for an actual decision. So I think if you have something really exciting you want to bring, some ideas for how things should work differently, working through the chair or through staff and getting something agendized in terms of like having the commission agree that something should work differently, and also trying to get that staff buy-in. Like, if it's a good idea, people will listen if you pitch them, and it might take some time to get implemented, but it can it's just good to be on people's radars. And there are also times where you might want to directly work with council if you have a really specific idea, some broader new arts program that actually costs money. Council would have to put it into the budget, and there are a few ways that could happen. That happens. Council has a little bit of like ad hoc budget. There's like a big yearly budget planning process. There are these concepts of like colleagues memos where that's basically how council proposes new legislation. So if you are convinced there's some great new opportunity, but it costs $100,000, you need to probably work through council through one of those mechanisms I mentioned earlier. And then, the work plans are as valuable as you make them. Council will read them, but if the work plan is, approve some programs, support some programs that are already going, we'll read that and we'll say, okay, cool, Public Art Commission, things seem good. Nothing's really changing. Not going to really think or ask a lot of questions. If you write in your work plan like a question like, hey, council, we want to do X, but we would need Y staff support and whatever, like it will get our attention. So also do that and make those documents clear on what your priorities are. Express things more strongly and less neutrally, and you'll get our attention.
That's good.
Yep.
Okay, just so I can clarify. So we're allowed to bring ideas to staff to potentially get on the work plan, or I'm not sure. Can you maybe just give us the steps about how that works? I hear you that we're 7 people. We all have just 7 different ideas about something maybe, but we probably all have ideas that we think are going to be fantastic. And obviously the staff is not able to manage all of that per individual person, and, you know, because they already are working really hard on things that are already in process. So I guess my question is, how do we propose new things? Do we do it as a commission and then ask staff to put it on the work plan for the future? Or how does it, what is exactly
Yeah.
the step-by-step process? I guess?
Yeah, I guess the problem is that there are maybe 10 different ways to do that thing.
Or maybe
But,
it isn't, or do we have the right to do that?
Yeah, in these meetings, is there like a formal time for council member comments or on items not on the agenda? Or at the beginning or end of the meetings, you can probably just go through the chair and just say like, hey, I have a great idea. The ghost of Jackson Pollock wants to do a mural on City Hall, and I am gonna call up Jackson Pollock, and it's gonna be great. And then people can discuss it and yeah, and then there's so many different ways this could go from there. It could go through staff, it could go through the work plan, you could talk to city council directly. Um, uh, uh, but yeah, through these meetings probably, and getting some consensus among the folks here is probably almost always a good first step.
I would agree. And, you know, talking to staff directly on how your idea, let's just say, and again, whatever it is, sure, fits within the work plan or the staff's ongoing work or not, right? And understanding the gap between what staff thinks, you know, may already be in the works or how it may fit with something that is in the work versus an entirely new effort, and understanding what would be involved with that entirely new effort, and you know, trying to find the common ground there, I think, is a starting point. And then beyond that, again, it would be for the commission as a whole to have a discussion on that topic.
I would say one of the things that staff is also trying to balance is best practices in public art, you know, so sometimes there are flaws with ideas in the way that they're pitched, but there are ways to get to that and still be within best practices or to loop it into something that's already on the horizon.
So do the ideas have to be put on the agenda before they can be discussed in a meeting?
In general, yes. And I don't know that you've got a mechanism for that. Again, with the city council, we have what's called a colleagues memo that perhaps 2 members of the council would say, I have an idea and would like us to discuss it. And that would go to staff, and then staff would put it on the agenda. They're part of the staff work in advance of the discussion, in this case, the council, is to try to assess, do an initial identification of any resource impacts to implement that idea. And then that would allow the discussion to proceed from there. But again, it would be put on the agenda.
If I may, so if you look at our agenda toward the end before we adjourn, we always have a commissioner questions, comments, and or announcements. And so sometimes people would say, hey, there's this great public art event at X, Y, and Z, or there's a conference on public art, come and attend. So people do share that information and bring it to the forefront. And the other, in case this is helpful, I do think that obviously, city government is a process of collective decision making. And also there's a lot of governance about making sure we are, using public resources in a responsible manner, right? So that's the part I think on number 2 that commission do not direct staff to oversee city function and resources. And so it's like, like to your point, the art of balancing, surfacing great ideas, but making sure that it's floating through the public channel so that we're not saying, no, we want that Jackson Pollock mural right here. I mean, maybe there's a right place for it, and maybe they're already working on a mural project, so then they can kind of direct the idea to the right, funneling it to the right place. So one of the things I personally try to spend time on educating myself is like the handbook. The handbook itself, we can Google. It's publicly available, and it also references the municipal code. And the Palo Alto Municipal Code has a section specific to Public Art Commission, and it lists, and I think very much paraphrase in the language, our authority, our responsibility.
Got it right
Yes,
there.
exactly. So it's really handy. And I always look at those words, even though it's pretty short, it encapsulates a lot of guidance in there. And so, I think we can glean from it and try to figure out under which section I am, raising this issue or making a decision or helping to guide a particular matter. Okay.
Exactly. That clarity of role is very important.
If I may.
Sure.
One thing I would like to add, just to kind of piggyback on the conversation in respect to your question, Harriet, is for some of the new commissioners in particular coming at the tail end of us finishing some of these comp plans. And so while we will try to find placement for some of the new ideas, we still have to kind of pay respect to finishing some of the plans that were made by previous commissioners and staff, just as when we make new plans with you, we will see them through. So I guess it's sort of a reminder that while we love new ideas, there was a lot of time with the community and the previous consultants that went into those plans. So, wanting to see those through to fruition and then embracing the new ideas too. So there's always, like Ed said, this tension, this balance, because I don't think we've quite checked everything off the list yet from our previous plans. But with that being said, we're almost there, and then we'll get to create some new comp plans coming up, which hopefully you guys will still be around for, and we'll get to help create. So if we don't find a place for your new wonderful ideas now, you will get to be here to create those new plans and then hopefully can fit into those new documents. So just kind of a reminder about some of those, while they may be many years old, there was a lot of time and effort put into them. And so we kind of want to be respectful of those documents too.
I can see that in some of the commissions, you don't want to have too much room for some dynamism. But I feel like in art, I'm actually doing a public art work with Redwood City currently. And it's interesting just to see the difference between, and that is a commission led rather than staff led.
Oh, interesting.
And it allows for a bit more, I can't say that word,
Dynamism.
And I know that we have Art Lift grants coming up, which I think allows for a bit of that to happen. But I'm just wondering, if there is something else that we can just implement to have things just be a little bit more energized in that way.
I just have one question. When the council people put together a colleagues memo,
There's some connection there.
and get presented to staff.
Mhm.
Staff has the right to veto it, or it doesn't come up, or
Actually, we don't.
You don't.
So we bring it forward again. our-
it's required by staff to
Well,
bring something.
yes,
forward.
basically. And we may, well, we'll typically talk to them about it privately. And if it's a really bad idea, we'll say, and really just try to have that conversation and try to have a meeting of the mind. But ultimately, yes, it would come forward. Again, our role is to identify the resource impacts. And sometimes if that's significant, that in and of itself could mean it may not be a worthwhile discussion.
And I just want to say all due respect to things that were previous on the plan and need to be implemented over time, because we all know it takes a long time to do things, and especially in the arts, especially if you have capital improvement plan that's been approved, 4 years ago, and now finally the art is happening for that. But, having been on this commission now for, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, I feel like I would love to be able to add, contribute, and maybe my time will come. But I don't know if I speak for a lot of people here, but now we have a whole bunch of artists on the commission,
Mhm.
so it's a different feeling. So anyway, those are
Sound
my
like
2 cents.
perhaps we can think through how best to channel that energy, right? And how best to help give that life.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think, and as you can see from the comments, we have very enthusiastic
Mhm.
commissioners. Many of them come from the mindset of makers, bringing things to life. And I also think that each and many of them, I would say all of us, are super conscientious in that they feel like they came into the commission with certain mission. And then sort of the reality is actually it's probably baked in the sort of the tenure to say, oh, okay, you have a 3-year term and, maybe this doesn't all need to happen in Q1, but,
Right.
Q2, Q3. Yeah. Yes.
Also, I thought that the retreat that we had was my first, and it was really wonderful, not only to get an overview of what was going on and what was coming up, but also the fact that there were no cameras and we were able to speak freely, So I think perhaps if we could have like 3 monthly meetings, where we could all just, I don't know, if that has ever been discussed, not a retreat,
Well,
but.
Speaking of cameras,
Oh,
yes.
I apologize. If we could have sort of more, shorter meetings outside of this with the whole group. No, okay. I see.
Yeah, can you explain the Brown
Sure.
Act?
I think that is one of the rules of the road, so to speak, that all of our commission's work are done in public and basically in front of cameras. And those are rules established really by the state of California, and there are very limited ability to do things outside of this type of venue.
Thank you. So the retreat cannot happen 4 times a year.
Well, retreats are typically public as well, and they may not be televised or streamed, but they would also still be public, open to the public.
Thank you.
And still minutes.
Yes.
Yes.
So at maybe at our last meeting, you guys brought up the presentation you're going to go give in support of the frescoes grant. Anyways, that was really exciting for me to hear and to ask, is there a way that we can support and can I come in support? Because I've had a similar experience in the whole 2 or 3 months of kind of feeling like, okay, I'm really excited to be here and I want to help and contribute and support you guys. And I don't feel like I'm doing much of that. So that was something I heard that I felt, okay, I can ask about this. If there are other things that our staff interest that other than selecting art, I mean, it doesn't have to be something that would be like the most fun, which that would be the most fun. I personally would be happy to hear about those things too, because I do see, it seems to me that part of our role is to support staff, and whatever that may be.
Thank you, and you spoke beautifully. So yes, there are opportunities to advocate, and especially around, big events such as Code Art. But sometimes we've also done murals festivals where we have commissioners, they're guiding, helping volunteers, talking with the public, listening, again, collecting that feedback. So we'll definitely be on the lookout for more of those opportunities.
This is kind of an oddball question maybe, but is there an analogy in the for-profit world as to kind of how this commission functions? I'm not familiar with, government much at all, embarrassingly, maybe to say.
Not at all. Let me think about that for a second. In a way, well, I'm looking for something that reads almost like I'll call it a quality assurance role. That's one in ensuring that what is being produced by the city aligns with the interests of our customers, so to speak, which is the public. And so that's one dimension. It's certainly not the only dimension. I'm curious if others have thoughts on that.
It's not really like a board of directors or.
Right. Given that you're essentially advisory to the board of directors, and in so doing, you are providing that quality assurance role. You're also, in some ways, a part of the actual production of our products, in lending your perspective to what is ultimately the product that our constituency, our customers see. And
And the customer.
Absolutely. You're also representative of the customer as well.
And maybe, I'm not sure if this is appropriate or not appropriate, but mentally I almost always thought of us kind of like a custodian, like a trustee type of situation, where a lot of times it's just ensuring that these public assets, either in the form of fund or actual asset, like a piece of artwork, it's properly maintained, accepted, and or deaccessioned. And so I think there's a whole process for doing that. And a lot of that sort of relates to title, right? And that's why I think of it as like custodian and or like trustee type of situation.
Thank you both. That's helpful to kind of orient.
Good. You made me think about it more broadly than I otherwise would. Great.
Well, if nothing else, I think certainly both what Ed, the guidance that Ed shared, and more importantly, I think many of the commissioners' feedback, I think will create new opportunities for us.
Yes.
As we collaborate together and try to figure out even better ways to channel ideas and also perform our advisory roles to the staff.
Yep. Agree completely. Again, thank you for the opportunity for the discussion, and we'll take the feedback and work both directly with our art staff as well as, again, you're helping us overall ensure that we're working well as a staff, a collective staff in supporting your work as well. Thank you. All right.
Thank you so much for coming.
Bet.
we run a pretty fast meeting, so. It's all right. Okay, our first official item is approval of minutes from February 12th, 2026, public art special meeting minutes. And remember, this is the one that we had to hold immediately after our retreat, right? Yep. So do
correct.
I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, I'm gonna follow this order. Okay, Vice Chair Stern. Okay, Commissioner Mullery,
Approve.
Commissioner Tran,
Approved.
Commissioner Yoshi, approved. Commissioner Smith,
Approved.
and Commissioner De La Garza. All right. Okay, and city official comments?
We have some good ones tonight. We have been busy engaging the public, and we'll see where Nadia's going to start. She's always keeping me guessing. So I believe at the last meeting, you saw the rendering of Bodek Luna's mural on the roll-up door at Fire Station 5, and here you see the completed project. There's Bodek on the right with some of the fire team there enjoying the new mural. So there was a lot of community who was coming by on their bikes and walking every day and watching him and engaging with him and sharing additional stories about the neighborhood. And, you know, and he was really appreciative of all the community outreach and the listening sessions that we had done there in the park and meeting with various stakeholders there in the neighborhood for him to develop this project. Mm-hmm. And then last Saturday, public art staff, Nadia, we took the lead, of course. And we partnered with the Palo Alto Museum to hold this event all about the frescoes. We had about 60 people turn out, which was really great. So Nadia had to do the presentation twice because it was a little hard to hear out there because our mic didn't work. But people were really enthusiastic. People loved hearing and learning more about the frescoes. There's some real educational opportunities there. We are hopeful that the grant funding will come through for phase 2. That's also going to be a whole other opportunity to engage the public and educate them about the importance of these frescoes. And they help sort of take care of them and keep an eye out for them. So it was really a very positive and wonderful event. And tomorrow we have another event taking place, a tour of our 2 new downtown murals. And we're also going to hear from Harumo Sato, and she's going to speak about her upcoming mural. So Bell's Books has offered to have an open house sort of tea time anytime after 3:15. About 4 o'clock, we will go outside. Unfortunately, Mona will not be with us tomorrow, but I will speak a little bit about the murals program and how these came about, the call for walls, how Max was one of the first ones to raise their hand and say, we have a great wall for you and we trust you, we trust the process. And they're just thrilled with the mural, and they're actually donating beverages for the reception at Pacific Art League too, which is great. And then we'll walk over to Pacific Art League and meet with Nigel Sussman on site. He'll speak a little bit about his design development process and his mural. And then we can go inside where hopefully it's nice and cool. And we'll have a slide of the proposal of the proposed mural by Harumo and hear from her about that design process. And yeah, have beverages and a reception. So please come if you can. Yes, so Bells will be, 3:15, she'll be ready to receive people with beverages, but you can come anytime. We'll start the program at 4.
Okay, fantastic.
Mhm.
Super exciting. We're gonna have to show up. Okay, so are we ready to move to action items? Fantastic. All right, first action item, acceptance of a donation of artwork.
So we have an artwork donation for Coverley artist Charlotte Hogsdotter. So she is an Icelandic visual artist based in California whose work explores the relationship between people, memory, and the landscapes that shape our sense of place. Working with photography, collage, and mixed media, she examines how environments hold traces of time and human presence and how our experiences of place become embedded in memory. She has been an artist. She is completing her first 4-year term in the Coverley Artist Studio program. And as part of that program, they are asked to give a donation of artwork for the city collection. And she has been an artist in residence since 2023. Her practice draws from the landscapes of both her native Iceland and her adopted home here in California. Over the past 20 years, she has photographed these environments, observing the subtle and profound changes occurring within them, including the visible impacts of climate change. Her work invites contemplation about how our actions shape and leave marks on the environment. She transforms photographs into sculptural objects through a process of cutting, layering, and assembling images by hand. Sections of the landscape are hollowed out and reconfigured, creating a three-dimensional composition that echoes the physical contour of natural terrain. Many works in the series incorporate patterns inspired by human biological structures such as fingerprints, retinal veins, and circulatory networks, whose forms also resemble tree rings, roots, and river systems. The artwork you see before you, Impression 27, was created in 2022. It's part of her imprint series and is created from a photograph of a California landscape. The image is hand cut into a fingerprint pattern and layered into an oval-shaped wooden panel with mixed media elements between the layers, resulting in a sculptural photographic collage. The carved pattern reveals both reveals and obscures the landscape, referencing the human fingerprint as a symbol of identity and presence, while suggesting the lasting imprint humanity leaves on the environment. The piece measures 8 by 10 inches and framed is 12 by 16 inches. So it'll fit nicely within the portable collection, and we look forward to placing it in a city facility soon. Are there any questions?
I actually haven't seen this piece in person, so I can see that there's a shadow. Is the shadow like, are the photographic elements a bit raised from the wood somehow?
It is. So there are hollowed out elements too. So it's almost like a topographical map at the bottom. That is the challenge sometimes in ringing something where you're looking at the image, but we also worry about moving the artwork and potentially damaging it. But it is somewhat sculptural on the surface. You're right.
Does it have glass on the frame?
Yes, it does.
I'm really enjoying the way that you see first the pattern of the thumbprint and then the texture, and then I didn't see the tree until like after looking at it for quite a while. So it's really nice to have.
It's funny because that's the first thing I saw.
Was it the first thing you saw? Yeah. So it's really nice to have an image that challenges you like that.
Any more questions or comments? Oh, it's a beautiful piece of artwork, and it will be wonderful addition to our collection. Do I have a motion to accept this donation of artwork?
I motion to accept.
I second.
All right, let's get everyone to vote for it. Vice Chair Stern,
Yes.
Commissioner Mullery,
Yes.
Commissioner Tren,
Yes.
Commissioner Joshi,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner De La Gaza.
Yes.
And yes for me too. And all the previous meeting, yes for me too. Yikes.
You forget.
Today is one of those days, I'm sorry. Okay, second
A
action
double yes.
item, collection care.
This is an item I'm going to turn over to Nadia about the maintenance treatment due for Universal Wound by Nathan Oliveira, which is at the Art Center in the courtyard there.
Thank you. Just bear with me for a second. I'm gonna share screen. Okay. I think if not all, but then many of you are familiar with this piece and experienced it in person in the sculpture garden of the Palo Alto Art Center. This is a very significant artwork in our collection. It was gifted by the Oliveira family to the city in 2014. So the sculpture is a monumental cast, a bronze sculpture with a unique patina. It was created in 2008, and Universal Woman was a very important piece in the artist's practice. He really wanted to create monumental cast sculptures for a while, and this beautiful piece was a result of that hard work and artist's vision. Since the sculpture entered the permanent collection in 2014 and was permanently installed in the courtyard sculpture garden of the Art Center on the pad, we have been treating it regularly. So there's regular scheduled preventative maintenance and cleaning that is performed by staff in-house. But of course, in addition to that, specialized treatments by professional art conservators are needed. And we perform those in general on a biannual basis. So we recently obtained, in its time, last time the sculpture was treated by art conservators from Preservation Arts in 2023. So it's really time, and we recently obtained a treatment proposal for this outing, and so which the proposal would the treatment would include the overall surface cleaning, corrosion reduction, especially in the area around the base because of the irrigation and just condensation, like acidity in elements, and most importantly, application of a high performance outdoor sculpture wax. It's a two-step process. It's very specialized. First, it's an application of hot wax followed by an application of cold wax. So usually this treatment takes between 1 and 2 days, depending on the weather and temperature conditions. So should the commissioners today approve funding in the amount of up to $3,700, $3,700, we would schedule the maintenance treatment for the end of July. Not July, April. Sorry, it's been a long day. April. Yes, that's true. Yes. So let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'll be happy to answer them.
I do have a question. Have we done specialized treatment like this before with this art piece?
Yes. So we have done a few specialized treatments. As I said, they are on generally like biannual schedules. So the most recent treatment took place in the fall of 2023. And staff also came to the commission to request funding for that treatment.
Would you happen to know the process of like the deep cleaning outside of the wax part? I'm just kind of curious.
Sure, I can try to describe the process from my I'm not an art conservator, but of course, at first the sculpture gets cleaned with mild water from any organic debris, guano. It likes to attract a lot of tiny spider webs. So it can be pretty a creative foraging environment for little tiny creatures. So the conservators start with just a thorough cleaning of all of those elements, drying it out, cleaning the base before they can start with the wax application. So just to make sure that the surface is absolutely clean. And that process can take up to half a day or a day, and then followed by immediately the application of wax.
Have we done this type of wax treatment to any other bronze that we have in the collection?
I believe that this particular treatment we applied to Universal Woman. It's a unique patina, so it requires this really intrinsic specialized treatment. So I think the sort of like the two-step wax application is specifically designed for, practice for this sculpture.
But there is other bronzes in the collection outdoor. There's nothing like this piece, so it gets this specialized treatment.
Oh, maybe just one more question. So is this a team that we have been using for a while? So they're familiar with both this piece and also the process.
And Preservation Arts treated Universal Woman in the past, in 2023, and most likely in the previous treatment as well. So they're well familiar with the piece and its requirements. Yeah. They're local East Bay based team and very capable and highly regarded.
Another question. Is this something that we would expect to do periodically to keep this patina, or what's the...
Yes, because sort of the wax, like applied wax, right? Like anything else, that protective layer has an expiration date. So the best practice is depending on sort of like the environmental conditions where the sculpture is situated, to reapply like wax every 2 to 3 years.
Think of it like a vehicle.
So then, like a vehicle, will it be more shiny, or will it kind of stay its...
Interesting question. Slightly more shiny because all the cobwebs and everything's out of there, but it's not going to give it a high gloss like a vehicle. And the texture of the piece, you have to look at it more closely next time you're over there, but you can see it has a lot of texture to it. Oh, thank you, Nadia. That's really helpful. So it's not going to get a glossy, shiny look to it, but it protects it from things like bird guano and other elements or rain or water that sits on that base.
Right.
I bet that would be really interesting to watch, because I was thinking of the texture and thinking, how does it not build up, like accumulate? Wax it's going to go on liquid. It's going to go on.
Right. So I think part of the treatments that like any residual protective layers, right, like materials, like they get stripped, right? And also another argument towards like having regularly scheduled, conservation interventions. They really preserve the artworks in the best condition and allow us to, be pragmatic with spending the maintenance funds, right? Because like, what's happening with the bronze sculptures that are out there in the elements for decades, and, the patina is changing, there's like discoloration. Bird guano can also harm the surface of the bronze. So those treatments, are more involved and is way more expensive. So we'd like to keep it on a preventative schedule.
I have a question about the process. So are you the registrar, Nadia? And then like who watches the maintenance of every single piece? How much public art is there in the collection now?
Yeah, so we have just over 300 pieces. That includes both permanently installed, permanently accession murals and portable collection. And yes, we track the condition of every piece in the collection. We occasionally we do overall condition assessments by conservators that draft the recommendations and also essentially set up treatment proposals by priorities. And yes, every time there is a treatment, it gets logged in the database. We document the condition before and after so we can compare and just track if there's any sort of like ongoing or changing conditions. But yes, I do track any maintenance or conservation or repair projects.
Could you just describe a little bit more clearly what is the process? So do you have it all in a database and then every few months something ticks up, or you obviously some pieces require more maintenance than others? So
yeah, so
does it work?
we use
don't mind.
Embark database where we log any maintenance treatments or moves, just changes to the collection. Just file retention and documentation that we use daily. So yeah, schedules, calendars.
Let me clarify also, every once in a while, we'll do a baseline. So we'll have the conservators come out and we have to spread it out because our maintenance budget's somewhat limited. So one year we'll have them come, okay, re-examine all the murals. Which ones are most in danger? What might it cost? What things might we want to think about implementing? What might be ready for deaccession. Then we go to freestanding sculpture. The next year, we have those implemented. So we use those baseline overall surveys to make sure that nothing totally falls off the radar. But there are of things that are outward, like sited outdoors, there are about 100 of them. And, people tend to let us know if something's fallen into disrepair, but we keep eyes on things too, saying, hey, I haven't gone over there and checked out that piece and how's it holding up? So as we're going around town and going to and from Cubberley and various sites, frequently we'll take a quick detour just to check on things.
I was going to ask, how long have you been doing that, Elise? Has that been for 25 years or?
Yeah, interesting. When I first came on as staff in 2010, there was no maintenance budget. And it's pretty unusual. And so we did go to council specifically and show, we had a lot of things that were falling into severe disrepair. And, really making the case that preventative maintenance will keep us from having to deaccession some pretty significant artworks and or having to pay a lot more for deep repairs. And so at the time, that maintenance budget was set at $50,000 a year, which was great. And we've had some tough budget years. So a couple years later, it got cut back to 30. And now it's gone up a small percentage each year as we add pieces to the collection. So we have to be very diligent with how we use it. We try and use in-house staff as much as we can just for, annual maintenance and cleaning. But every couple of years, something needs to get waxed, needs a more detailed kind of maintenance plan.
I'm curious how you, given a limited and probably maybe underfunded budget for maintenance that you would love to do, how is it that you allocate that across the need? If you've got more need that is equivalent among different pieces, how do you decide what to do and when?
Well, we talk to the conservators. A lot of these projects now, we've been here long enough, we've gone through cycles with them. So we tend to know, that one gets hit with a lot of sun. It's going to need more frequent care, or it's under a tree. Maybe we think about moving it or changing the base to that piece. So we've been able to take care of a lot of things and then get them on a regular schedule.
Well, thanks for the background. That was a really good refresh to understand how maintenance projects come to the commission for us to take action.
Okay. All right. So can we vote on this? Do I have a motion to approve the funding for 3,700 for the maintenance of Universal Woman?
I would move to approve.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, fantastic. Well, that's roll call this. Commissioner Stern,
Yes.
Commissioner Mullery,
Yes.
Commissioner Tran,
Yes.
Commissioner Joshi,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner De La Garza,
Yes.
and yes for me as well. All right. All right. And then we have one non-action item for the Art Lift Grant 2026.
So we have been hard at work preparing for Art Lift. We had a tremendous number of applicants with some really creative ideas. It was fantastic. We had 69 applicants this year. I think Nadia's going to pull up a couple of process slides. Commissioner Tran was the Public Art Commission representative on that selection panel. It was a really excellent panel. It was, as staff, it's always interesting to see how the scoring online in advance of the meeting and then the discussions really shift sometimes the scores and the panelists' thinking. But these are projects that have been selected that we'll be able to divide pretty evenly throughout Cal Ave, downtown, and Coverly. Yeah, so I'm going to share just a snippet because we are still, this is the top 10 ranked. So should one, for some reason, not be feasible, we will move to the next top ranked applicant. Right. So Zoe Caron was planning to do community mural painting on panels out at Coverly. She does environmentally themed works. You can see bright, bold colors, and the panel really responded well to her work samples and her proposal. The next one is Charlie Gattikin. So the proposal would be to place 3 of the bushes. We're not doing the trees, but 3 of the bushes, which are still about 5 feet tall. The picture's a little deceiving. And so we're looking for spots where those might be able to fit and have power and cover conduit potentially in the Cal Ave district.
And how long will they be approved?
2 to 4 months. Jaya Grisham, a series of indigo dyeing workshops. So the first one, people would be invited to come sew banners or flags or objects that they would like to dye. And then she would teach different techniques for how to get different patterning within them. And we'll be able to have approximately 100 people participate if there's full interest. And at the conclusion, some of those would be shown at Coverly, so hanging almost like flags around the campus. This is Karen Landheim. It's let me explain in just a second what you're looking at. It's a sculptural piece. What you see at the top of the framework is a series of pulleys, and the red is exercise bands. But there are red lights in it, so it's meant to simulate a campfire. So the idea being that the project would potentially, originally it was maybe one weekend in one location, but we're hoping maybe we could do a Friday and a Saturday on Ramona Street out there activating it. We already have the Adirondack chairs. It becomes sort of like a campfire. And then potentially another weekend on California Avenue. So we're still kind of navigating what's feasible. But it's a highly unusual project, very, very different, unique, really fun. Sophia Lee, who has had a grant once before, but the idea being there would be a series of workshops out in the public where people could make these sample fortune cookies. They're made out of cloth, and they would be hung. She had proposed a different, like a trellis, which I don't think is going to be feasible, but we are looking at potentially ribbons on trees, maybe down by the California Avenue train station in that plaza there, that it could be an interesting spot. Alamohense is, yeah, Palo Alto scope. So going to his filmmaking roots, creating one of these projects where you turn the crank. It's a mechanical sort of movie with a flip, 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 you know, the flip cards. And it would be at Cubberley out there for a period of, I think, a couple months. Miguel Novello. What you're looking at is the A-frame, which is a prompt of a meteor that has crashed into it. And there will be instructions for you with your phone. It will then pull up a virtual meteor in the environment in which you are standing. So here is an example of it. Of course, it wouldn't be in a hotel ballroom, but that is a project that can travel to multiple locations throughout Palo Alto. This project, Hidden Birds, Playful Discovery in Palo Alto, it would be a series of these small ceramic birds and QR codes so you can know where to find them. And so we haven't navigated how many exactly. We're talking about potentially California Avenue. And so that is that project. That'll be really fun. Lisa Van Duzen, I don't know if you had a chance to see her exhibit at Avenidas about the popos, the privately owned public space. So the idea is to activate these spaces that people may not realize are accessible and open to the public. So it's a series of really fun and creative activations. She started to touch on it some before her exhibition at Avenidas, and we're really excited about how this can really bring awareness to some of these spaces. Most of them are in the downtown area, but not all of them. And then Michelle Wilson, it's a basically it's a sewing circle, and there would be a few different activations in different areas of town where people can work on this communal art project, making one larger piece. So we're working out some details on how it would be viewed at the end and how the final product would be shared. But people who have never sewn before are welcome. Everyone, whatever you have to give, you're welcome. Or you can just sit and chat. Sewing circles historically have always been a great place to find community. It is, yeah. It looks like
she's done it in the past?
yes, yes, yes. It's this is the Rhinoceros project. Yeah. So that is hot off the presses, and we are working with each of these artists to firm up the details and get them rolling. So we'll be sure to update you with a timeline as we firm that up.
Can I ask a question? What's the fund size, the grant size? Are they all the same for every one of the projects?
They're $5,000 grants.
Oh, my mic's on. I've got a couple of questions. The Zoe Karen, the panels at Cubberley, any idea where they're going to go yet?
We haven't gotten that far yet,
Okay.
but open to ideas.
Okay. Well, I mean, all of these, we're talking about, ways that we can contribute to the public. I mean, I can see a lot of things that we could potentially volunteer and help with. For example, I have a lot of fabric that I could help with the fortune cookies. I'm sure some of us might want to be involved in some of these projects. Yeah.
That would be great.
And the Alamohense, the paleoscope, So that's going to be out the whole time. And do we have any concerns of security with that?
We've been discussing that, if it would have security hardware to one of the posts out there or what that looks like. So we'll do a walkthrough next week. Mhm.
I just wanted to say that I really love the mix of things that are kind of people coming together where there are multiple people, and then also ways that people individually can interact with these different pieces. I think it's a good mix.
The panel was amazing. And I don't know, Commissioner Tran, if you wanted to share anything about your experience on the panel.
Yes, I mean, I appreciate having being able to sit on that panel and look at such a variety of projects. I think it's always enriching to see how people talk about their art, right, and talk about the potential proposals and such. And I'm very happy with the selection that was made by the other folks on the panels, which consisted of other like artists as well. And so I think we were all kind of really thinking about curating something that accommodated a variety of people, right? So it wasn't just like one type of project. So I appreciate the range, which and then the consideration for public engagement as well. Yeah, so I think that was a key part of this. And I think you folks have a lot on your hands to facilitate and curate and coming up. So yeah, it should be very exciting.
I just had a question. These are all, I like what you just said, the community engagement aspect of it. But this is all visual art. Did we get any other type of art, like performance art or music?
There were a couple, there was a dance troupe, there were a couple of other projects that were proposed. They didn't rank as highly with the panel.
Just curious if we're giving a variety of media.
Mhm. We do get some. The majority is all visual art, and historically, that's what the Public Art Commission has commissioned. But the Art Lift grant is one of those opportunities where we do sort of broaden, the opening there.
Any more questions or comments? Okay. Yes, please.
The 5,000 is for producing the artwork also, or is there separate help?
And it's 5,000 all inclusive.
Any more questions or comments? If not, do we have any public letters?
There were none this month.
Okay. All right. And this is the part that we were talking about earlier. Do we have any commissioner questions, comments, and or announcements?
Not this time, Chairman. In the future.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, on that note, the meeting is, wait, what is that? Oh, we do have an announcement.
We do. We've got Coverly Open Studios are coming up. It's after our next meeting, but it's kind of tight after the next meeting. So I just want to make sure it's on everybody's radar. And then we have a couple more cards and postcards for tomorrow's event with the Downtown Murals Walk.
Oh, well, I'll take a picture of that and share that. All right, well, yes, please, one more.
It's not mine, but Simon's, and I don't know if this is appropriate to share, but can you give us, is there an artist talk you're doing or anything in association with the exhibit? Yeah.
I'll have to give you some details later when I get it, but there's an opening reception, I believe. I have to look it up, but I think it's like in June at some point. Yeah, thank you.
And you can always send announcements like that to staff to ask us to forward it to the commission as a body too.
Okay, so if we don't have anything else, meeting adjourned.